Hey everybody, Evan here with Hoppermusicworks, here for our live lesson this week. We're going to talk about bar chords. That's just a little jazzy example. We'll go through that a little bit later and show just how many bar chords were in that progression. So just to start off with, I'm going to explain about some bar chords and why people usually tend to avoid them in the beginning. And if we start out with some of the first chords that we start learning, like maybe an A chord or an E, all our fingers are grouped together and they're each on their own string. A D chord, G, these are all our basic open chords. And there's no point in any of these chords where we have a finger playing across more than one string until we jump into the dreaded F chord. The small example of F is like this. Looks kind of similar to a C chord, but it has this tiny bar where we have to use our index finger to play across both the B and the high E string to make it happen. If we left that off, you actually get a different chord. That's not an F chord. This is, so it's important that we get that down. And then the big old hairy bar chord here, the full F, where we just add in the A and the low E string in there. And this is the real scary thing for most people, is just that we've got our full index finger across the entire fretboard like this. You have to push down a lot harder. And it's daunting in the beginning. Like, we just learned that we needed to push down pretty hard to learn the guitar in the first place, so then getting to bar chords is kind of like starting over again, and that can be frustrating for a lot of people. The tips to start getting yourself prepared for bar chords starts with your thumb. The thumb is one of the most important things because it's behind our neck. It's helping anchor everything that we're doing. And if we're playing, let's say, an A, it's pretty common that you'll see a lot of guitar players play an A like this, and my thumb is over the top, hanging out. That's because I built up my hand strength. I've been playing for a while, and so it's not hard for me to do that. My hands are strong enough to play that chord. Same with an E, it's sort of poking over a lot with a D. If you're a beginner student and you're doing this, it's a very bad habit that really needs to be addressed, and hopefully your teachers are addressing that. I know that I've begun to address it because I didn't realize how important it really was, and since I've been playing for a while, I was getting kind of lazy keeping my thumb over the top. So when I introduce any chords to students, need to make sure that your thumb is relatively in the middle of the neck, right around where it starts curving around the other way, if not a little bit on the bottom. For any of your chords that you're doing, if we start our A chord, don't be up here, be down here like this. It has to be like that because what this is doing is it's helping build up the strength in your hand, this like clasping sort of grip that we have on our guitar. We need to keep that there so we can build up our hand strength so that when we get to bar chords, we'll be a little bit ahead of the curve, instead of being totally lost and not knowing why we can't get a single note to pop out. The other thing to do is to practice playing our chords in an alternative way. Usually, a lot of our beginning chords, we're using our first, second, and third fingers. We're not using a lot of our fourth finger in our playing, and it seems to be, gets forgotten a little bit, but all these fingers are very important. We need them to play a ton of different chords, a ton of different music scales, soloing. If it didn't have a pinky, it'd be pretty hard. So, just to start off with some basic examples, on our E chord, usually we play first, second, third finger position like this. Way to practice it is to omit the first finger and then play it with our third, second, and our fourth finger. So we'll put our second finger where our first was, third where our second was, and then fourth where our third was, and it looks like this. And you'll still get the chord to pop out. This might take some more time. Make sure you've got your thumb back behind on the neck as well. get a nice result. Same thing with an A chord. Instead of like this, we'll play it like that. And the next thing to do is really to just lay your index finger down as if it was acting like a bar. Starting on an E shape, we lay it down behind the nut here. And it's not doing anything right now, but it's approximately a bar chord shape. So it just gets you used to the stretch of this, how to play it. Same thing with an A. Once you get really comfortable with playing your E and your A chord with these three fingers instead of these three, then you'll move on to trying to actually attempt the real bar chord. So we just simply take an E major shape and we slide everything up one fret and place our finger down. And now we're on an F major. Like that. Now, this is where it gets tough because our index finger is being asked to do a lot more work than it was doing before on any of our chords. And one thing to do is you don't need to be like hanging over really far or barely have the finger on. We'll place it where your index finger will be hanging over a little bit on the neck. And this is all hand size dependent. I don't have very large hands myself, but my fingers can still easily get across the fretboard. If you may be a younger player, it might be hard because your hands aren't fully grown yet, but you can still make this happen. It'll just take a little bit more time and practice. And that's another big thing about this, is that we have to take the time and we have to practice all of these things. It's not going to come out on the first try through. It'll probably not come out on the 100th try through. So we just got to keep pushing on. And another important thing that we've got about our index finger is that we're not going to place it super flatly right down the middle of our finger. You can test on your finger yourself. If you sort of go across the middle part of your finger, it feels sort of soft. Whereas if we just go over a little bit and we're on like sort of the edge of our finger right here, it's a lot stronger. The skin feels a lot thicker, maybe a little bit more rough, but that just lets it not be hurt quite as bad. By placing it down on the strings, it can endure the punishment that our strings will bring onto it. So we don't place it down like this. We place it down slightly on the side, and we bring the rest of our fingers up. So try to build it like that, where we place this finger down first, and then we build up the rest of the chord to work on the stretch, because it might be tough in the beginning to get everything to the front. We might have our fingers way farther back into the frets, and then that makes it really hard to get a clear note. When we're more in the front, it's way easy to get a very clear note out of this. And so the index finger's got to be right at the front. If that was in the back, no way. There, we got all the notes. I just moved it forward. And for the thumb placement, again, the thumb being super important, my thumb is slightly underneath the bottom. It's either right in the middle, slightly underneath the neck. That way I can push up with it a little bit, but just up with the thumb. I'm not pushing up with my fingers, because we don't want to bend the strings, because if we start bending into the strings with our grip, we start getting a little out of tune and things don't sound right. That'll add a little bit to the frustration. So this is our E major bar chord shape. We can take it and move it all the way up the fretboard and get a bunch of different chords that we can't play in an open position. Right here on a 5th fret, this is another way to play an A major chord. It gets a little bit higher, it adds an extra string of notes, so it changes the voicing of it. And there are times where that needs to be used for any particular song or any progression where we don't want to be moving all the way down to the open position. It's more comfortable and easy to just play in the bar chord if the neighboring chords are really close. Now the other basic shape would be our A major shape, where we're playing like this instead of this. And we do the same thing. We can bring it up a fret and then place the finger down. This shape is kind of tough though, because we've got quite a big stretch between the first finger and the second finger, 2 frets to be exact. And you'll do the same thing. You'll place your finger slightly over to the side and try to press down as hard as you can, and it'll take a lot of practice. On the second fret, that's our B major chord. So we need this and that to fill out the rest of our chord alphabet, because open strings we can play an A, a C, a D, G, and E, but there's 2 more notes left in the alphabet of music, and that's an F and a B. So we need this shape to play our B. Another way, and this is the way I really like to play any of the A major bar chord shapes, is to take the focus a little bit off of the index finger, but now all of the focus happens on the third finger. This makes it really easy to bring it up the fretboard, because the only issue with this shape is that things start to get super cramped. We start getting up here, and it's really hard to keep all your fingers on a fret when the fret starts getting so small. So what I like to do, instead, I'll not really be playing a bar chord with my index finger, but I'll be playing a bar with my third finger. Most of the time when we're playing chords, we want our fingers to be nice and round, and this will actually flatten out our finger a little bit. That first joint will be collapsed in, and the second one will not be. And I can get those 3 strings to ring out with that. Now this finger, I will do the pressing down straight along the middle of the finger. I don't need to turn it to the side. We can press straight down right at the front of the fret, and then try to get that index finger over here, 2 frets back. And I usually don't play the high E string with this shape because it's kind of tough to get that note in there. You really have to bend this finger out of whack to get that top note in there. It's possible, and if it's something that you want to do, absolutely go for it, but this sounds very close, and it's really easy to move up. I just like to do it like that. But now I can get all the way up as high as I need to go and play this shape, because I only need to put 1 finger here instead of 3. It's a very useful shape. Now the other 2 ways that we can alter these bar chords is to make them minor chords instead, because we've just done 2 major chords. So we'll just take that same altered E shape and then make it minor by removing the second finger. If we slide that shape forward and we place down the bar, now we get the minor version. Now this time the second finger is just hanging out. This is not on the fretboard at all. If I could tuck it underneath the net to be comfortable, just to show that, I would try, but it would be a little bit hard. But right now, I'm asking my index finger to play even more frets. It is playing the G, B, and E string, as well as the low E string. So it's really these notes that are right underneath the third and the fourth finger, that the index finger is playing, that are crucial to get out. So that G string, make sure that you can hear that note coming out. And with any of these bar chords, you might play it and go like, that sounded great, but then you realize one of the notes wasn't coming through. So I like to make sure and test all of the chords one string at a time. Same thing, just like that. That lets you know that nothing was deceiving you, and you have all the notes popping out and you're playing everything properly. So back to that minor shape here, we just remove that second finger and we turn any of our E-shaped bar chords into E minor shaped bar chords. Now with the A shape, to bring it to A minor, you have to alter the chord. And it looks a bit like an E major chord actually, we just move everything down. And that gives you the major, and then you bring everything up. And now we're back to barring both sides of this group on the A string and the high E string. Getting every note to come out. test it like that. It's really, really important. That way you know you're getting all of your notes to come out really good. So that's 4 different simple bar chord shapes that we can turn into like 24 new chords, and well, actually I think like 48 new chords, because we would have 12 versions of playing an E major, 12 versions of an A, because we can go all the way up, and then we have an octave here at the 12th fret, and then a minor. So there's so many more chords we can play with 4 simple shapes. That's really the thing about bar chords that is great. We don't have to learn any new information. If somebody says you need to play a G sharp minor chord, all I have to do is find where G sharp is on my guitar. It happens to be the 4th fret low E string, and then I play an E minor shape like this, and I move it up until my first finger's there, and that's a G sharp minor. If I needed to play a B flat minor, then I find B, F flat at 1, at 6th fret, right there. You can also find that elsewhere on the guitar, 1st fret, with an A minor shape. So go through and try to find E minor shapes and A minor shapes, E major and A major shapes of the same chord, and that'll help you start getting your fretboard down other than just memorizing some notes. And really, bar chords ask a lot of memorizing our fretboard. Maybe we'll dive into how we can do that in another lesson. But just with these 4 chords, we have so many more possibilities that we can play. All the sharp and flat chords need bar chords. And yes, we can absolutely use a capo to make that happen, but that's not really the point of a capo. The point of a capo is to shift the key of the song up, so that, say you're playing a song and it's in C and the singer is just a little low for them and they need it up to D, then you'll use your capo and you'll go up until the song is now in D. So if we take this shape for a C and we brought our capo up to the 2nd fret, that is a whole step, which is how much higher a D is than a C, and then we play the same shape, and now this is a D chord, but it's a C shape. So it's not like you had to learn a new piece of information to change this into that shape. So that's what a capo does. It doesn't mean that you can put a capo on, play a B minor like this, and then instantly take it off and be able to play another chord right underneath. That would take way more time than you need to just change through the next chord. That's why we need the bar chords. And so then we'll just go on to some examples of styles of music that use bar chords a lot. The first example that I have is funk music. They use a ton of bar chords. It's, an example like this. All of this, that's a bar chord. It's just using one finger to play multiple strings. So if you like funk music, you're going to need your bar chords. There's jazz music. They get into much more complex chord harmony, and you're going to need bar chords for that. The first example that I played at the beginning of the stream was a sort of a jazzy thing. Started on an E minor 7, which is a bar chord. I'll play through this progression once again, and then I'll let you know which chords are bar chords. So our first chord is a bar chord. It's an E minor 7. We have to play the A string and the D string, and even the high E if we had that note in. That's our index finger. Second chord is not a bar chord, so we get a little bit of a break. The next chord is a D7. That is a bar chord. Same thing with the E minor 7. We're playing A and G strings to bar that. A G major 7. I need to bar the B and the low E string. C major 7. That's also a bar chord. We've got the A and high E string. This chord here was not a bar chord. And then lastly we've got a B7. Same as our D7, just shifted down. And that's why bar chords can be super great. Those two shapes are exactly the same. All I did was change the root of the note, but I didn't have to change any information that my hand is doing. All the information was just sliding up to a key, so my brain had to do way less work to figure it out. This shape, you can slide it down anywhere. This is why bar chords are super great. So that whole progression has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 chords, 5 of them are bar chords. I think it was a pretty cool progression, and 5 of them are bar chords. So if I were to bring that to a lot of my students that are beginners, they would be not wanting to learn that because the bar chord would be too daunting. And me as a teacher, I can try to figure out ways to troubleshoot this, to figure out, are some fingers laying down, muting certain notes? Are we not pressing hard enough? After that, it is really up to any individual student to put in the time and practice. I wish I could be a miracle worker and just say this is all you have to do to make it come out easy, but with any instrument, and really anything creative, it's about the time you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And so we need to practice these and not give up on them, even though they're hard. At some point, they're just going to be super duper easy, and it'll make everything so worthwhile. It's just so, it's so great when you get these down. I had a student yesterday, it was like the fastest I've ever had somebody learn a bar chord. It was awesome. It was super encouraging, and once you get past that, you'll feel that encouragement, and you'll want to continue to play guitar more and more. So now I was going to dive into a few popular examples of bar chords. The first one would be in like Hotel California. We can't avoid a bar chord in that, and it's a super cool song. Let's say, if you're Don Felder, you're up here, you're capoed on the 7th fret, super high up. Luckily, you don't have any bar chords. Would be our next chord. And you're lucky there, but if you're Glenn Frey and you're playing down all the way on the 2nd fret where you're just voicing things differently, you start out on that B minor, and then we have an E7, so we're not yet on a bar chord, everything's going great. We have G and a D shape, and you're good. But now after this D shape, even though we have a capo and we think a capo might solve all our bar chord problems, it doesn't, because we have to play this bar chord shape to get the next chord out. So not even a capo can save you from playing a song as cool as Hotel California. Another example of bar chords, and they are all over this song, is Africa by Toto. This is a very cool song. A lot of people really like it, and it starts off on an A bar chord. Goes very quickly to a G sharp minor bar chord, and then C sharp minor bar chord. And there's no way we can capo this. There just really isn't an easy way to play that song with a capo. When we get into the verse, there's 2 that aren't bar chords because they're open chords, so that helps out a lot. But then right back to our bar chords. There's that progression has, let's see, like 5 different chords in the progression, six different chords, 4 of them are bar chords. And even in the chorus, you might say, I just want to learn the chorus of that song, maybe. And you starts out F sharp minor. We can't really avoid playing any other chord for this. Everything else isn't a bar chord, but you still have one, and that'll even discourage people from learning a song, is if it has one bar chord in it, they're like, I guess I don't need to play that one. And it just it makes me really sad when people don't want to learn a song because there's this one hurdle that they just need to spend a little bit of time to get over. And I know it's tough. It took a long time for me. I don't even remember how long it took, but I was super motivated to take the time to do that, and it's all about what you're going to get out of anything. A super popular song that you're not supposed to play in any guitar store is got a ton of bar chords in it. Stairway to Heaven, that intro. Bar chord, bar chord, bar chord, bar chord. You only get the last 2 to take a rest from any bar chords, and even like the main progression at the end that the guitar solo's on has an F in it. Like that. There's no avoiding those chords, so please take the time and try to learn these bar chords. It'll be so valuable to your playing that if you look at any guitar player who is like a rhythm guitar player, especially a lead guitar player, they're not playing in the open position on the neck all the time. They're up the fretboard. They're playing different voicings for chords. If you have multiple guitar players in a band, you don't want to be playing the same chords because it just kind of muddies up the sound. You might have somebody playing a C right here, you're going to want somebody else playing a C up here, because it just divides everything up and makes everything sound that much fuller in a band experience. And speaking of lead guitar players, bar techniques are all over soloing as well. If we just look at a simple pentatonic minor shape, you can play that without barring anything, but if you start trying to make that a lot more musical, I went from the A to the D string, and instead of going like that, which is absolutely a choice, it was much more fluid to just roll my finger down and do a bar. Tons of barring even in soloing. You're not going to escape it by saying, oh, I don't want to play bar chords, I'll just be a lead guitar player. And when you start getting into some more styles of like metal music or progressive metal, they start getting into a lot of techniques or even neoclassical sweep picking. This is through arpeggios, and there's just playing a chord one note at a time, and then you move that up and you've got a bar chord right there. You have to play that with the same finger, and this will just make any stylistic choices that you want to learn that much easier if you've just got all your basic bar chords down. So again, to review the ways to work on our bar chords, we've got playing our chords alternately using different fingers. Instead of E major like this, we'll play E major like that. Practice that for a bit. Right now my thumb's in a terrible spot for anybody who's practicing this. Bring that thumb down. Gotta put it in the middle, because that's the other thing, is your thumb. That'll help out a lot, because it's not just our hands pushing on the fretboard, it's our thumb pushing back the other way. So you get this sort of clasping motion. That helps your fingers out a lot, because your thumb's pretty strong. Get that back there. Same thing with an A chord like this. And then practice these with your index finger laying down behind the nut, because it'll just get you used to how your hand's going to be when you slide everything up. Then when you feel like you've got those chords sounding really good and the alternate fingerings, slide everything up. Try to make this happen. One tip that you can do with making bar chords work, if you feel like the F chord is too hard and you're like, I'm pressing down super hard, it should be coming out, I've rolled my finger to the side and I'm just not getting it to sound like that, a lot of that's because playing in the first fret is not easy. There's so little string behind you that you have to push down really hard, whereas if we're in the 5th fret or the 7th fret, there's all this string behind and it's really easy to push down. It's pretty easy to just make a note pop out without picking it. Not as easy in our 1st fret. So we can take this shape, as I said, and we can move it up anywhere. So if you really having trouble with the 1st fret doing this on what would be an F major, bring it up maybe to the 5th fret and try to play it as an A major, because it'll be a little bit easier for this finger to be pushing down because we have a lot more string behind us. The tension of pushing down is a lot less. Playing it on the 7th fret, somewhere around here is really comfortable. The stretch also gets a lot smaller, so that way we don't have to worry about the stretch being the issue, where here we've got to go quite a ways to make this difference happen. Here it's a lot smaller, so if you have smaller hands, you might be younger, try practicing this around the 5th to the 7th fret, and the stretch will be a little bit easier. If you need to go higher, please do. I mean, some of you might be very young, like 8 years old, 9 years old. You still got some growing to do so that your hands aren't quite there yet. But you can look anywhere on YouTube and see 8-year-old players that can run circles around my playing, and because they took the time to do the bar chords, but they're not letting any physical problems like having small hands because you're a child let them down. They're just getting past it because they want to learn how to play like Eddie Van Halen. So anyways, we can practice the bar chords up a little higher to make it easier. A major shape like that, minor shapes, and then bring them down, because then you'll work on the stretch down 1 fret at a time. The stretch keeps getting a little bit bigger every time, and probably by the time you get down in that 1st fret, your hand's going to be much stronger to make it work out. So I hope this helped anybody who's having some issues with their bar chords today. I really enjoyed teaching on this. It's something that I've seen a lot of discouragement from students who don't want to learn bar chords, and it's something that I've had to push a little bit hard back to make sure that they get those down, because there's a lot of times I want to learn this song and I go look it up and it's got a bar chord in it, so I know it's probably not going to be the easiest process, but you just need to take the time, practice it. And a lot of things with bar chords is that they do hurt, so take your breaks. Just try it for 5 minutes or so, put the guitar down, or play some other practices that you're very used to, and then come back to it. Put another 5 minutes in there. You don't need to practice guitar for 3 hours every day to become great. You can 20-30 minutes every day, and you'll get the results that you want. Again, it's all about what you put in is what correlates to what you're going to get out. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in for this bar chord lesson. But before we go, just wanted to show everybody I did get some business cards in, so super exciting. See how well they show up on the camera here. Let's see, still a little, there we go. That's looking good. So got some business cards, so if you see me around and you want one, just let me know. I'll give you that. We've got social media on the back, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. You can follow me there. I'll probably comment in this video and just let you know my usernames for that. So super excited to have some business cards. And so I do offer private lessons, so you can email hoppermusicworks@gmail.com if you'd like to sign up for any private lessons. You can either come to me or I can come to you in the comfort of your own home. I also do Skype lessons for anybody who's been playing for around 2 years or more, and If it's been a little bit less, we can do like a little interview video just to make sure that some of the basics are done, but we can always do anything over Skype. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you again.